What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick.
And my name is Dave.
And this is the Christmas special of the Deep Dive.
What you've been waiting for.
I know. We've been doing this all year long.
Yeah.
It's kind of culminating to this point.
That's right. The Christmas Spectacular. Everybody's doing these Christmas specials.
Yeah.
This is our
version of that. You saw a new intro. We got a new set. We're using new chairs, and I think we might have to keep them.
This is pretty comfortable.
This is pretty comfortable.
I'm liking this setup. I got a little fireplace behind me, so got to be careful with that.
We're warm and cozy. We got candles. We've got our own elf here. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's good times.
Well, let's do this thing then.
All right, let's get into it. All right, Dave. Well, we are going to start off by talking about some of our favorites, some of our Christmas traditions. I think there's no more appropriate way to start than us to kind of throw out some of our favorites. Do you have any favorite traditions that you do with your family that you must have to do for Christmas?
Wow, that's a good question. I think there's several, and I don't know that we have any really long-standing. It's not Christmas without. But it seems like we get into these patterns of doing things for several years. But one thing that there's usually a puzzle that either gets bought or it's a Christmas present, and it's usually a big one, maybe like 1,000 pieces or something like that.
Right.
A pretty complicated one. And we'll begin solving it and putting it together, and just all throughout between Christmas and New Year's, it generally gets put together. Our kids aren't around as much as they are. Our kids are grown, but
right.
They may be there for 2 or 3 days or something. And so maybe not as quite as much, but there's one on the table now at the house being done. So yeah.
Now do y'all leave the snacks there so that people will come and be like, oh, I could do a few while I eat my snack.
Right. Yeah, everything's there. Of course, we have a cat, which we don't want to get involved with it, but yeah, that's there. We have some traditional Christmas presents. Yeah. It's not Christmas without my wife giving all of us pajamas.
Okay.
And so one year
now y'all do the matching pajama thing, or is it
no?
No,
it's just pajamas, just practical pajamas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah.
We are matching pajama family. And,
I can see that.
Our elf.
It's very Rachel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our elf happened to bring us some shirts that have most likely to, and it kind of fills in the blank. So there's a lot of different ones. Mine is most likely to have a better beard than Santa.
Okay. Got a ways to go on that.
Got a ways to go. Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
But
4 or 5 more days.
Good times. Yeah. One of the things that we do is we like to go do a Christmas light viewing. So we kind of make a day out of it. We go out to eat, get some pizza, and then we drive around as much of Cherokee County as we can before it gets too late. And we ended up at Veterans Park this year. And
I've heard that's spectacular.
It is. It's pretty cool. I think we asked the people, and they said they have about 2.5 million lights.
2.5 million lights. I drove by there, but I think we'll go in there. That sounds like good. Our neighborhood in Harmony, there are some folks that have done spectacular jobs.
Speaking of neighborhoods, we actually stopped by a place in a neighborhood, and it was one of these guys, our families. It's called the Evans House, and they did the whole light syncing up to songs and stuff like that, and they even went so far that you could go on a website that they made and you could select the next one. So if you wanted to see, they had The Greatest Showman, they had Elsa,
Where is this?
It's in Orange Shoals.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're up that way,
Connie and Scott live down there. I know several people live down there. Yeah.
It's really cool, and it takes. We sat there for probably 20 minutes just listening to as many songs as we could.
Sounds like a little trip. Yeah,
it was. Yeah. What about Christmas movies, Dave?
Christmas movies. Yeah, there's movies, and we've started watching them now. We usually watch about one a night now, and we've seen the new Guardians of the Galaxy, the Christmas
so
special.
Funny.
Oh, so good. Yeah, I liked that. We've seen what is the new Will Ferrell?
I don't remember the name.
Yeah, that was good. That I think that will become a standard. Of course, Elf. You guys see Elf.
Gotta have Elf.
Yeah, we've already seen Elf. We've seen the new Christmas Story, which was, I had real low expectations, and the movie started off meeting those low expectations.
Yeah.
But it really was a very sweet movie, and got
That's kind of cool.
You got movies that you have to see that.
Elf for me personally, Nick Yoder is one we have to see. I like to watch like Home Alone during this time as well. Christmas Vacation, such a classic. You got to watch.
Yeah, I got to watch that.
There's some like that.
I have a couple. For me, It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Classic.
It's a classic. I've got to see that at some point. And then Love Actually. And people either love that movie or hate that movie. I happen to love it. I have some sentimental reasons for it. I saw it with my sister who's passed away the first time and just had a real good memory of that. So have to see that at some point. Usually on Christmas Day, I watch Love Actually. So, yeah.
It's kind of a good of a time of remembrance and celebration, I guess.
For sure.
So, any Christmas snacks? Like Christmas dinner comes along.
Yeah.
Anything you got to have, or y'all switch it up quite often?
Yeah, I think there's probably some traditional foods that show up at the Christmas meal, but as far as snacks, just anything. I mean, we just being on church staff, as you know, that's the way. It seems to be the congregation's love language is to bring us snacks.
I know. So I feel like every day somebody's bringing over
something else,
cookies or.
So there's been no shortage,
and we ain't telling you to stop. We are very thankful for them.
Yes, loving it. Yeah. So I don't know that I've got any. I have to go by and get a peppermint shake at Chick-fil-A a couple of times. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and at Starbucks, I've got this thing. It's a chai tea latte that I get like 2 or 3 pumps of peppermint in.
Yeah.
And my daughter says it tastes like a toothpaste backwash, but to me, it tastes like Christmas. Oh. That is my Christmas go-to at Starbucks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, Dave, we've kind of talked about some of our favorites, and we hope that whatever your favorites are, that you get to just celebrate those this coming week. But I thought it might be appropriate to move into a time of we've been talking about coming home for Christmas, and we've been doing this whole Lenten time frame as a way to kind of lead up to for us kind of Christmas Eve here, and but even Christmas Day, of this coming back to the manger, coming to Bethlehem and stuff like that.
Right.
Maybe talk about a little bit about the original.
Well, let me set up this by first of all giving some kudos to our choir program, our music ministry here, because yesterday, this will come out later in the week, but we're recording this on Monday, but on Sunday, I didn't preach, and the whole service was music, and it was amazing.
It was great.
It was so awesome. Yeah, if you were in the Christmas spirit before, it'll put you in that. If you haven't seen it, you can go to our Facebook page or YouTube or go to our website and watch that service. Lots of beautiful music.
It's something you could definitely put on kind of like as an ambiance if you needed to celebrate the season a little bit.
For sure. That's a great idea.
There were so many good solo acts, the choir, there's such a good variety of
we have a lot
music.
of lot of talented people in our church.
Yeah, it was awesome.
But anyway, so there was no sermon yesterday, and what we usually do is, would deep dive, unpack the sermon for the previous week. And so I thought that this week, and we had a discussion about this, that we would go back and look at the original early nativity story, the one from Luke's gospel,
right?
And look at it, and not in a way to sort of destroy your traditional understandings of the nativity, because over the years we've all seen every Christmas nativity plays put on, but in some ways it doesn't exactly match up, or there's some overlap, but we've added some things. There's some things that sort of been retold, and the important thing to realize is this is not a myth. This is an actual event that happened that changed the world. That was in a certain time with some certain things going on, certain context, in a certain culture. And it's just important, I think, to remember those. And it's certainly, I think, a good thing to contextualize it into our own world to make it make sense to us. But it's a real story.
Right.
And so I thought that might be a good thing for us to do here on our last podcast of this year.
I think that sounds awesome.
And so I'll read to you from Luke's Gospel out of the Common English version of it, which the language may be different from what versions you may be most familiar with. But it says, in those days, Caesar Augustus declared that everyone throughout the empire should be enrolled in the tax list. This first enrollment occurred when Quirinius governed Syria. And so what's important there, what Luke is doing is he is setting it in time. He is actually naming historical people so that we will know this isn't like, long time ago, far, far away, or once upon a time. This is an actual event. These are the people. They're Caesar Augustus wanting to make sure everybody is counted for tax purposes. And so what he does, he said everyone went to their own cities to be enrolled. So you had to go back to their hometown. It seems very disorganized to me. It seems like you would just send out people to take censuses.
Yeah.
But they send everybody back to their hometown to be counted. And so since Joseph belonged to David's house and family lines, King David, he went up from the city of Nazareth in Galilee to David's city called Bethlehem in Judea. And so, it's about 60, 70 miles away that they would have to travel up in the Galilean region to get kind of the Sea of Galilee up, the top, and then you kind of come down and then back up to Bethlehem. Okay. Actually, on the other side of Jerusalem from Nazareth. He went to enroll together with Mary, who was promised to him in marriage and who was pregnant. When they were there, the time came for Mary to have her baby. She gave birth to her firstborn child, a son, wrapped him snugly, and laid him in a manger because there was no place for them in the guest room. And so, there are a lot of things that we have sort of built into the Christmas story. And first of all, it says guest room here.
Right.
We've said inn. And so when we think there's no room in the inn, we've thought of like a Motel 6 or something. There's no room. All the motels are booked. And so we've all seen Christmas plays with that. The truth is they didn't have those back then. We're talking about houses. We're talking about houses with guest rooms. We're talking about every relative of everybody coming back there. And so, of course, it was very, very crowded. But where Jesus was actually born, and we know this from history and archaeology, and also from biblical words. The words that's been in has meant different things at different times. There's no room in the inn, but really it does translate into guest room. Probably is a very good translation of it. What I wanted to show you today, and we're actually going to
pictures.
I got pictures today.
How about that?
Thanks. So if you're listening to this, I'll try to describe this. But if you're watching, maybe you can see it. And I think when they edit this, they're going to put these up so that you can see them full screen. But I'll show you. So this is a picture here of what original. From archaeology, what they've discovered there, they would have had, the houses there largely weren't made out of wood because they didn't have those materials. And mostly there's no shortage of rocks in Israel, but they, out of mud and clay and putting those things together with rocks and, and straw to fashion their houses. But they would have several levels in the houses. This one is showing 2. Sometimes they would have even more, but they would have a level. And as you came into it, that was really the stable. That was really where they would bring in their animals at night. And then you had the next level up, which is where the people would sleep. And it wasn't like, this big sprawling open, kind of house or, with the formal dining room and all that. It's just areas where people would have their bedrolls to sleep, or maybe an area for cooking or that sort of thing. So, when we hear, there's no room for the hotel, we got this idea of Jesus being born in a barn or something. Right. But he was born among the animals, as it tells us, in the inn, but inside the house. They weren't out there by themselves alone. They were there with relatives, staying in the stable. In actuality, I've heard this and read this that actually it may have given them more privacy, in having the birth to be down with animals. They also in a culture where they wouldn't have thought of like hygiene the way we would do. They were used to animals. Animals were around. They were inside the house. They were a different level. Yeah. But they would bring them in there for several reasons: for warmth, from protection, for the animals, to keep them from other, wild animals getting them, or possibly people stealing them or whatever. And so, they would all huddle in all their possessions into the house at night and kind of, seal it off there with the animals down there first. So, Mary and Joseph, and where Jesus would have been born, there. I actually have, let me see if I got another picture here I can show you. Second picture. This is actually, I think this is, I'm not sure if this has been reconstructed or put together, but it was in an archaeological file that I found online. But, this made me look more like what it would have looked like on the outline, the second picture. And then the third thing I think is interesting is when, most of the mangers that we've seen have been built like wood, like a little creche thing with the wood. And actually they were
looks like
made,
a trough.
They were made, they were more made like, this is actual one
like
from that time.
concrete or rock or something.
They made them out of stone because, it's to say there wasn't wood as I'm looking out the window here now, I can see pine trees and stuff.
Yeah.
There's just not that many trees around in that particular area of the region. So it would have been made out of a stone thing. That's what Jesus, of course, if I would put straw in there to make it.
Make it
but that would have been what it would have looked like in the circumstance in there. Women relatives would have been around to help Mary and to take care of them. Yeah. And so they were with family. And so, this idea, and there's been songs that have been written and all of that, would have, that's not entirely accurate. That's sort of a contextualization that we've done of it, and just maybe kind of a misreading of the text a little bit.
It's interesting because you showed all those pictures, and you were talking about the myth, and you're right. I mean, like, just seeing these three pictures, like, it almost changes your whole visual of what it actually kind of felt like. Because again, we always kind of view like a normal like type of barn or a stable and an inn. You know what I mean? Like you kind of have these, and these are things that we've been taught as children.
Right. Yeah, and and as I say, I'm not doing this to
destroy
Christmas for somebody.
Oh, thanks.
But just say that this really, to make it hopefully more real, this is an actual event that took place that we know from careful reading of the Bible. And maybe it's time to go back and read the text and not just imagine the story because it's so familiar. Go back and see what it actually says. For example, who is there? Who was there at the birth?
Right.
And of course, the shepherds were there. And you should know that that community, Bethlehem, would have been a place where a lot of shepherds would have lived.
Oh.
A lot of people, that was their profession, was shepherding there. And actually, and this is where it has some sort of symbolic significance in that as I've read from some commentators, a lot of the sheep that were there were the sheep that eventually would go to some of the better sheep would go to the temple to be used in sacrifices. And so, of course, the Lamb of God being born there in a city which was, where the sacrificial lambs were there. I don't think it's lost on us,
right.
the symbolism and significance of that. So who wasn't there? Who wasn't there were, first of all, the three kings. And first of all, go back, and they're not in Luke at all to begin with. That's putting Luke and Matthew together. But, and they weren't exactly kings. We've called them kings, I think, because of the song.
What?
And there also doesn't say that there were necessarily three. There could have been two. There could have been 10. We don't know how many kings. There were just magi. We call them wise men.
Right.
They were, this is interesting to me, astrologers. They were people that looked at the stars for guidance and looking at the heavens, revealing about something happening in the universe. And it's so interesting because I know particularly in some church circles, astrology or looking at the stars is kind of looked at as sort of demonic or something. But these are people that learned that something was happening in the world, wisdom beyond themselves to go and to seek out. And so they weren't there, and they weren't there for some time. How long? We don't really know. Here's what we know from the story in Matthew's gospel, that they went to Jerusalem first, asking about it, and Herod, who was extremely jealous. And so, let me back up a little bit. So there's been some traditions that said they came on the 12th day. That's where we get the 12 days of Christmas initially from. It wouldn't have been the 12th day. Jesus would have been circumcised on the 8th day. But Mary would, it had been 40 days before they would have taken him. There was these purification things that women, when they'd had a baby, had to go through. I think it was 33 days and 7 days beyond that. So it was 40 days before they were going to the temple. So at least wasn't in that time. And it probably could have been somewhat later in Matthew, up to maybe 2 years, because when Herod had the babies killed, because he was so jealous that this another king was coming, that he ordered all the babies 2 years and older. And so, I've heard some people say 2 years. Joseph had a gig up in Nazareth. They probably wanted to get back, but we really don't know. It could have been 2 years. Yeah. But that's where that. So sometime later, the Magi, and I don't think it's bad form to put those in a manger scene, but they usually all end up in the same play, right?
Yeah, that's
and
true.
So that was something that happened down the road a while. It wasn't.
Yeah, it felt like when you think of the traditional story, you think of them showing up like a couple hours later, like, oh hey.
Even the movie, and this is another one I like to watch during Christmas. The Nativity. Have you ever seen that? Very well done.
Actually. Okay.
Very well done. But they do have the Magi coming to the manger, and so that they weren't there. That's putting Matthew and Luke together. They're telling the same story from two different perspectives,
right?
And they've got they've each got I guess a story they're trying to tell within the story. They're both telling the birth narrative. It's interesting. It's not in Mark at all, and that John has this very cosmic sort of version of the word.
He's always a little
became flesh. So of the four Gospels, it's only in two, and we've largely got what I'm calling traditional. It's really not, because the Bible is our tradition,
right?
But what we've typically seen in Christmas plays, I think a lot, is sort of a melding of Matthew and Luke, plus some ideas from the context over the years and of things that have been added to the story, and I think it's good for sort of kind of recover what does the actual biblical story say. I think it helps us.
And I think it's definitely one of those stories that you kind of hear over and over and over again, kind of coming into this season. So it's easy for it to maybe slip a little bit to, I've heard this, I've known this since I was a kid, or you know what I mean? As opposed to really studying and trying to put, like you said, kind of the pieces where they go. You know what I mean? In terms of like,
well, okay. Let's take a beautiful song.
Yeah.
Like, Mary, Did You Know?
Yeah.
And so, first of all, I've heard that's mansplaining to Mary. But yes, she did know. That angel came and scared the fool out of her.
Yeah.
She did. And then she had this long prayer of, all this. So yeah, she did know.
Right.
So, but yeah, we have these songs, and there's great sentiment, and there's beauty in that. The snow lay all around us. Those. Christ was born, but there wasn't snow.
Right.
Very unlikely that there was snow in that region of the world.
Crazy
so,
day.
But, through particularly in the West, a lot of most of us came from, you and me at least came from, Western Europe kind of stuff. And so people, as it got contextualized there, different things got added and ideas that they had based on that, like they made stuff out of wood. So they built, wood creches and stuff. And so that's how it sort of evolved. And then we got into America and we've kind of Americanized it all. So, I think going back and recovering the good biblical story is important. But yet, what are some lessons that we can learn from this story, just as it is?
Yeah.
And the first one I would say, and then I'll let you comment. The first one I would say is it's fine to contextualize it. I think we have to do that. We do that with the Bible all the time. Heck, that's what I do every week in sermon, is try to take a passage and put it into our context. And so there's things to be gained from that. But at the same time, I think there's something in the actual literal original story for us to gain from that, of what would have been around there as the Savior came into the world.
Yeah. I think the lesson that we can learn in a space like this, and maybe even hearing some of this stuff, is, don't just assume the Bible is the basic children's stories that you hear, or that there's no more context in other places to learn from it. I feel like I often learn more as I've studied, and even though I've studied some stories many, many, many times, I feel like I'm always uncovering new aspects of it, new sides
You
of
and me
it.
both, all the time.
When you really take the time to study the Bible, you're not just looking at the words. Like you gotta kind of understand the context of the political climate in the area at the time, of the social climate at the time, because it's hard to read some of the stuff because you're like, man, that just seems harsh, or that seems mean or whatever. But you go, but that's how it was then, and not to give them carte blanche because of that, but also is like, how does the Bible contextualize itself today? You got to learn that by seeing how did it contextualize itself at that time, and then being able to study it and translate it moving forward.
Yeah,
I think.
I mean, Jesus was Jewish,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of Jewish custom and culture that is there. Certainly with his family, the
Right.
things that they would have been observing there. They were under Roman rule, which was a very oppressive government at that time.
Yeah.
They had this tyrant in Herod who was there, and a part of the Christmas story that we understandably leave out was the slaughter of the innocents that took place there, and the Joseph being warned in this dream that they were going to have to, go to Egypt,
Yeah.
the first part of Jesus's life.
Right.
And so, all of that was very important. The Magi, one thing they did was warn them, and God through a dream warned them so that they left,
Right.
and Jesus was spared. So, but yet babies died during that time, and there's that whole thing, Rachel weeping for her children. That's a very, very powerful verse as part of Matthew's birth narrative. So. It is a story that's appropriate for children, and we love the Christmas story and think about children putting on Christmas plays and stuff. But there is an adult part of this story as well.
Yeah.
And that is when you figure out what Herod did with what the political climate and things that were going on at the time. And Jesus was born into
Right.
that muck and that mire, and for all of the chaos of the world at that time, he came into that world. Not, it's not a fairy tale.
Right.
It's not a myth.
Yeah.
It's an actual event that happened, and we don't know everything about it. We know what we can glean from the Bible, and it's got some detail there. But
Yeah.
we've learned more through archaeology of what it might have looked like, and from history and a few other sources
Yeah.
of what the times were like. But there's mystery in that as well. The mystery of how God could love us so much to become one of us.
Yeah.
The whole mystery of the incarnation, which is the gift of Christmas. And I think it's great to sit with that mystery and that awe and wonder that's a part of the season as well.
Yeah, I agree. Man, it's a beautiful time. It's a beautiful season. It's kind of crazy. Even people who don't believe in Christianity, how much joy they even share at this time and stuff like that. I think it's great to watch kind of the community kind of wrap itself into maybe a story they don't even know yet.
Well, I mean,
but we know it,
yeah.
and that's the beautiful part, is that like,
Yeah.
now that we know that a Savior has been born, how are we taking that and telling that story to other people so that they know they have a Savior?
That's right. Right. That's right. And, it really is a part of, everybody, stops regardless of what religion they are in our country, in our context, whether they come to church, whether they know Jesus, they know Christmas.
Right.
And it's sort of like putting the story with what they already know and being able to tell the tradition. And I think that's part of getting into the biblical context is to, one of the things, and I see this every Christmas, is I tell you somebody else who wasn't at the manger scene. when I see this. Santa Claus was not at the manger scene.
Wait, what?
Santa Claus was not in the manger. But every Christmas I'll get a card or see something, and if you sent me one, please don't be offended. But with like Santa kneeling at the manger, it's just like, let's keep those. Santa's great. Let's just keep those things separate.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's have that fun, that sort of
Side of it.
a side of it, but let's try to keep the story as real as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And I think it's important, and for us to know, we call them holidays, and people can sometimes get uncomfortable with that, but it's holy days.
Yep.
That's where that came from, and these are holy days to be reverent and mindful of our faith as we move through them.
Yep.
Have fun, celebrate Santa, be with family and friends.
Yeah, spend great time. Don't
Drink the eggnog and the chai tea lattes with shots of peppermint in them. But
take
remember
advantage of the time you've got with loved ones.
Yeah.
Have a great season. Eat your favorites.
Yeah.
Celebrate. Do your traditions, even if they might seem silly to you. They're just so fun to keep around, and this has been cool. It's been a big honor to be able to do this for a full year with you guys too, to be able to sit and podcast and deep dive. So we're very appreciative that you guys keep being a part of it too. And I don't know. We never did like a full how many episode count, but we know we're somewhere in the 40s,
47,
Yeah.
something like that. So we missed a few, but most every Sunday this year, and we'll start back the first week of January.
That's right.
We've got we'll have a service at Hickory Flat. I think we've said it a lot now, but Christmas Day, we will not be meeting in person, but we will have a worship service. It will be online.
Yep.
And so, but it's there, and we realize people when the friends also going to be incredibly cold and windy here in Hickory
It's
Flat.
gonna be crazy.
Yeah, so be safe and careful and
warm.
Yeah, but we look for that service, and you may be busy on Christmas morning, but just sometimes during Christmas week, I think we've got some things to share that will help center us, and
right.
then. On New Year's Day, we'll be back together, worshiping together in person at 10 o'clock on that day. And we have a baptism, and we have communion, and we'll be doing the Star Words thing again.
Nice.
So,
That'd be good.
I'll look forward to. And then we'll be doing podcasting. And but thank you, Nick. It's been a great partnership being with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Frankie, our producer here, for all his work this year. We've loved doing it, and look forward to another year.
Absolutely.
That's ending season 1.
Yeah,
or however
season
you do those.
1 officially done right here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys again for watching, and we'll see you next year.
That's right. God bless. Have a great Christmas and a happy New Year.
Yep.